Yeah, so hello, we are the Petit Manan crew for 2023. We have a little slideshow set up for y'all, as well as a few show and tell items. We are currently shooting from our front lawn. You can see the awesome lighthouse in the background. I think prior to starting the presentation, I might have my fellow crew member, Jossie, run over and snag a chick. Unfortunately, it's been a pretty tough season for us as far as weather goes. We've had, I think, going on 29-day hours alone. So like day hours of fog. We've had one day in July where it was sunny. So we've had some difficulty getting out into the colony, and today is one of those days where it's just drizzly and dank. And so we wish we could take you with us, but signal is bad. But luckily for us, we do have quite a few terns that nest right in our lawn. And we have a very lovely tern chick that is coming to say hello. So this right here is a common tern chick. They're pretty mean, pretty loud, as you can hear. And these are one of the little guys that we monitor and take care of throughout the season. I'll mention a little bit more about them later. You can tell they're maybe not the nicest to us, but we love them nonetheless. So yeah, do you guys have anything else to mention about our little feller?
I don't know. He does have a leg band that we could show off.
That is true. So a very cool thing about our birds and the way that we tell the difference between them is that we put these little metal armbands, which leg bands, that are called bird band lab bands, and they have unique numbers associated with them. And we try to get as many out per season, and that makes it a little bit easier for us to tell long term who's going where and how old they are. Recently, with a puffin, we had a 28-year-old puffin that we wouldn't have been able to know without those bands. So goodbye, little man. We'll see you tomorrow. So I'm gonna quickly share my screen. There we go. Okay, so you guys can see my screen, I hope. And then hopefully, I assume somebody say you can see this.
Yes, we can.
Okay, sweet. So I've made a presentation because I was kind of bummed that y'all couldn't come out with us. So I'm basically gonna go through, show a bunch of photos about everything that we do. And hopefully, if anything sparks a question, keep it to the end, put it in the comments, and we'll try to answer and do a little Q&A at the end. So welcome to Petit Manan. This is kind of one of our sunsets. If we had more sunsets this season, I'd be a happier person, but we did get a few and they are pretty gosh darn beautiful. So basically, this is where Petit Manan is. We are part of Eastern Maine. We're about 40 minutes off of Bar Harbor, and we are about 2 miles from the mainland. There are multiple islands in the Gulf of Maine that actually have researchers on. Some of them are run through Maine Coastal Islands, and some of them are actually co-run through Project Puffin or the Seabird Institute. So we're not the only ones out here. We are the only ones with a lighthouse on the Eastern Maine side of things, which makes us cooler. And we are currently on a 10-acre island. You can walk around it pretty quick in about 20-30 minutes if you're really taking your time, but if you want to run around it, you'd get around there fast. So basically, here's our crew. We're going to do a quick introduction of everybody sitting at this table, and hopefully people have things prepared to share. So we're going to start with Devin in the back.
Hi, I'm the odd duck out as the millennial and the West Coaster. I really like birds, and I've been sort of making my way to the East Coast for a while because they're all new and different for me. So it's very exciting.
Rad. We love Devin.
All right. Hi, I'm Jossie or Jocelyn, and I'm from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I'm currently a junior at Gettysburg College. And this is my very first field season, and I am absolutely loving it.
Hi, everybody. I'm Logan. I'm also a junior from Gettysburg College, originally from Hanover, Pennsylvania. This is also my first field season, and I'm out here with Jossie. We were with our professor, who's no longer with us right now. She'll be back on the island soon. But basically, the research we're doing out here will hopefully be used, that was funny, for our honors thesis project.
Oh, man. And hello, my name is Amanda McFarland. I'm the island supervisor this season. I'm actually a local to Maine. I'm from the Rockport area. I am a UMaine student finishing up in December, and this is my second season on Petit Manan and my fourth field season on a Maine coastal island. So here's our ragtag group. Hopefully you found those introductions entertaining, and let's get into the thick of it of what we're actually doing out here. So the work that we do is mostly surrounding seabirds, obviously. We live and breathe on this island for about 4 months. We start early May till about the early August to mid-August. It's a long-term seabird monitoring project. This is actually the 40th year anniversary of this project. And that basically creates a very long-term data set that we can look at for climate change, for species change, for shifting and all that. It keeps us informed as a scientific group. Here on Petit Manan, we monitor 7 seabird species, and I'll get more into those species in a second. And we do both hands-on and observational work with these birds. So in this photo, Jossie is banding a tern chick. With most of our species, will do a hands-on portion, which is a productivity check. And that basically is where we're going to each of the species and assessing how successful they are throughout the season. This island is where all these birds nest and basically rear their chicks. So we like to know in a long term and short term how good or bad they're doing. And we do that by doing weights and measurements of a select group of these chicks, and that goes for everybody. Observation wise, we basically will sit in blinds and see what food is coming in, and that gives us better information about how our chicks are doing in the long term. So here's a couple images of, us around the island, us being kind of silly. So from right to left, we have an Atlantic puffin adult, and that metal piece that Linda Welch, our wildlife biologist, is holding is its BBL band, and we will capture those from the burrow and see how old or young they are. We'll weigh and measure and see who's where. Down below is Tasha Generis, who is the professor from Gettysburg College with Jossie and Logan, and she's also banding a tern chick. Jossie in the middle is weighing one of our very cute puffin chicks. We weigh and measure those guys every 5 days to get a better idea of how they're growing. And Devin in the corner is in the corner of the foundation, grabbing one of our favorite foundation chicks. Puffin burrows can be in sod, they can be in rock, and additionally here we have artificial box burrows that are the nicest, but usually it's a pretty awkward grub, as we like to call it. So we're going to get more into species specific. We're going to kind of show you the cute pictures that we have because of course they're so gosh darn cute. So we have 2 species of tern, and these guys tend to take the limelight for us. They tend to be the majority of the work that we do. And we have common and Arctic tern. So the little chick, teeny tiny thing on the left is a common tern chick. The middle is an Arctic tern, freshly hatched day-old chick versus about a 27 to 28 day-old fledgling. So that's about the size difference between just a little under a month. It's pretty impressive how fast these guys grow. And then to the right is an adult Arctic tern that we trapped early this season. So we work with all age groups of these birds, from the moment they're hatched essentially till, when they're in adulthood and nesting. And a lot of the information that we're gathering from that is, again, growth rate, how successful they are, how many chicks were actually fledging off the island, and from the adults, how many adults are actually staying around, where they're going, and how successful that individual is doing. So now we're into what everybody likes to see. These guys are our poster child. These are the Atlantic puffins. We have about 80 to 90 burrows that are active every season, and we spend quite a bit of time in July with these fellers. From left to right, we have a very close to fledging chick, which I forgot the name. Did we not name that chick? Heartbreak.
I think that is Baba Booey.
So that is Baba Booey. We do name most all of our chicks. We have a very fancy database where we actually recite these birds, and it gives us something to look forward to when we're entering endless amounts of data. If you work in science, it's really fun until you have to be sitting at a computer. So we try to make it a little bit more fun for us. In the center is a bird that we had recently grubbed, and we're processing it, weighing and measuring and assessing its bands. And then to the right is a slightly younger chick, I would say about probably 25 to 30 days old, that was recently grubbed. So we grub about 20 to 25 chicks to assess their productivity. And it's basically, every 5 days we do that. So we do spend a lot of time with these birds. They are pretty amazing, pretty cute. They're just as charismatic as everyone says. So yeah. Now for the team favorite, Everybody likes to talk about the puffins, but then when you actually work out here and you get to hold a freshly hatched black guillemot chick, your opinions change pretty quickly. So these are our local rock stars. They're the black guillemot. They're also an alcid like the puffins, but they fish and live very differently. They're also pretty quick to fledge. We tend to see them more underneath the boardwalk, which is the span of the island, and makes it really fun when you walk and you hear them. They're also the most violent chick I've ever met. From the minute they're born till the minute they fledge, they will try to end your existence. And I don't know why. Their adults are pretty relaxed, but there's just this weird stage where they just don't like anything. We have varying sizes and growth. They tend to grow really, really quickly and do really, really well. They tend to eat rock gunnels, which are these weird little eels. And they are just so silly and so cute, and I love them so much. And then our last two fellers that we work with that we don't tend to spend as much time as I'd like, but it's for good reason. On our left is a Leach's storm petrel. They are a nocturnal species of tube nose. They are very tiny. They weigh about 50 grams on average, and they make the cutest Muppet noises ever. They like to talk all night long. If you leave your window open, you might hear some burrow disputes coming in. And their chicks are, as described by old crew members, a marshmallow that you dropped in the fire pit and covered in ash. They are just so tiny and so cute. We do a number of work with them. We check them every month, as well as doing some mist netting, which is a way to trap adults to assess how many we have on the island. And then to the right, another personal favorite of the crew is our one razorbill chick that we fledged this summer. They are in a similar group of alcid to the puffins and guillemots, but they are much bigger, they croak, and they are personally my favorite. Their chicks fledge extremely quickly. Ours is already fledged, and they fledge in about 15 days, and they'll go to sea with their dad, which I find to be the cutest thing ever. So basically, I speed a lot of information at you, a lot of very biology-based stuff. If you're ever curious about our week-to-week, day-to-day silly business out here, or even past historical, or even other islands, we do have a blog, which is a little bit more organized and put together than our very not so put together presentation. But feel free, if you're in the visitor center, to ask about it. And also, if you're not, you can always just Google Summer of the Seabirds blog or Maine Coastal Islands. It'll be either way. Basically, it's a weekly thing. It's super cool. And finally, if y'all have any questions, that's honestly where we shine as a crew. So ask away. As I say, no question is too dumb. So yeah. And stop. Perfect. Nailed it. So yeah, I can take questions in the comments. I don't know, Tori, if you want to kind of moderate, that would be super sick.
Yeah, of course. We've got a question from someone here live. I'll let her ask.
Of course.
Hi, Amanda.
Hi, whoever. I can't see.
It's Amy.
Oh, hello.
Hello. So, do you ever see Troppy out there?
So Troppy, so the question is, have you ever seen Troppy out here? Troppy is referring to the red-billed tropic bird that was on Seal Island. And I believe the last time it was ever sighted was in 2021. I don't think that tropic bird has ever gone this far east. I believe it was only on Matinicus Rock and Seal, and it was there for 17 years, which is quite impressive. Yeah. But unfortunately, I believe Troppy is flying in the big island in the sky and is no longer with us.
All right, thanks.
Looks like you've got another question in the chat from Barbara. What are the number of nests on the island for each species, if you just give a rough estimate?
Okay, I believe in myself. Okay, so every season we perform an island census for eiders and laughing gulls and our terns. This season we had a pretty low number. I believe it was about 40% lower than the previous season at 961 for terns. Yeah. Thank you, Devin. Yeah. Basically, there's a number of reasons why that happened. We're still trying to get to the bottom of a lot of it, but we do have a lot less terns nesting this season. For puffins, we had about 80 active burrows, and we probably have about, I would say, 60 still active in whatever degree that is. we had 4 active razor-bill burrows. One of them actually succeeded in fledging. And for petrels, I would say we're in the realm of about 80 active burrows out of 120 odd that are around the island. They're pretty hard to monitor because they are really small. But we'll have a better idea come next week, actually. And then guillemots, I believe we're on par with last season with about 86 or 87 active burrows. So I believe those are the numbers you want to know, right?
Yeah,
Is
that sounds
everybody?
about
I
right.
think so.
Nice.
Sorry, can I share a couple of things about my experience of Petit Manan and also grubbing burrows since we're on it. I've been coming to Petit Manan Point for 73 years. And way back in the day when my grandfather was still alive and taking us out in boats, we actually have been on the island multiple times, have climbed the lighthouse. So to see it out there and to know that you all are making use of the island in a very different way is just great. And then the other piece is that, again, about not 70 years ago, but 50 years ago or so, when I was after my junior year of college, I worked on Kent Island, which is off the coast of Grand Manan, and did Leach's petrel. I did a study of chick growth during that summer. And I still have my data if any of you are interested, but it was a really fun experience. And I can't remember who it was who said, this is your first time on an island doing research. Was it Jossie?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the two of
Yeah,
us.
and both of you. So that experience, that summer on Kent Island was my first experience of field research. And from that, I went on, I got my PhD in ecology and animal behavior, taught college level, taught high school, which I love. And I'm now teaching other old folks like me. And so I encourage you to stick with it and not ignore teaching, because especially Amanda, you already have shown that you have the ability to interact with us and convey information. So I challenge you to that, and I'm sure you'll all succeed one way or the other in whatever you end up doing. So thanks for doing this.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for sharing.
So on that note, Barbara mentioned that she used to be able to actually go on the island. Now, of course, one of the questions we always get asked here at the center is, are you able to get onto the actual island? And people are always a little bit disappointed when we tell them that you're not actually able to set foot on these islands. Can you guys talk a little bit about why that is and why it would not be maybe the best idea for us to change that?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah, so these are really sensitive colonies. For a long time in the Gulf of Maine, these birds are actually extirpated, and they're extremely sensitive to change, and they're not really equipped to deal with mammalian predators. And we as humans are mammalian predators. So it really only takes one person that isn't paying attention or knowing what they're doing to crush chicks or crush eggs or have them abandoned. So as cool as an experience as it is to be out here, it is pretty unique, and we are, pretty aware of how our effect is on these birds. So we really recommend that you enjoy it from afar. A boat tour is a wonderful thing, and we do get regular boat tours out here. And it is a way to contribute to these colonies without negatively affecting them. So you just got to think of it like that. Like, what if somebody barged into your home? Nobody would like that. And it's the same thing with these birds. So that's kind of why it's definitely not the response that I want to give to people, but it is definitely for the sake of the birds.
That ties really good into Luke's question asking, are there natural predators in the area? And if so, how do you account for them?
Anybody want to answer?
Do you want me to answer?
Yes.
So there are natural predators within the area. Most of them, well, all of them, knock on wood, this season are avian predators. So things like our gull, our peregrine falcons, and all of that stuff. And basically how we account for it is just kind of being out in the colony, keeping an eye on it. If we see a peregrine coming in, we'll try to make ourselves known so that the peregrine doesn't feel comfortable enough to come in and try and predate any of our terns. So basically we kind of use ourselves to like, we sometimes yell or make loud noises to try and scare away the peregrine before it gets to the tern colony and is able to get anything. So it's kind of just being out in the colony and making our presence known to any predators, and that normally deters them.
Nice answer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think would happen to those colonies if there weren't researchers like you living and working out there in the summer?
I mean, not great things. So these colonies aren't as big as they used to be, and they aren't as self-sustaining as they used to be. So our main role out here isn't really the research itself. It's more to keep the island safe. We're basically bird nannies. So, early in the season when they're establishing, like what we saw this season, even with us here, is that they are extremely sensitive and extremely nervous. And there has been seasons like 2020 with COVID, where a lot of islands saw quite a bit of failure due to people not being able to get out early enough. I have talked to quite a few people that had a moment where they're like, we were too late and their birds failed. So it is really pertinent that we do have people here that are paying attention and that are trying really hard to keep these predators off so that they don't get reestablished by gulls, or that these terns have a safe place to nest and continue their generations.
So, where do you guys live out there? I mean, you're on this island. Do you boat back to shore every night and stay in a hotel? Are you in a sleeping bag in the colony with the birds? What's going on?
I don't know. So if we just turn the camera, so we actually have a pretty nice house here, right beside us. This entire island was a up and running lighthouse for a long time in the mid 1800s. So to have people here that used to stay here year round, it is probably one of the nicest field conditions I've ever worked in. We do not leave the island except for occasionally we get a break, mattering on conditions and how many people are on the island. So we essentially spend our 4 months here. I'm personally in a sleeping bag. It's kind of up to what you bring. I know some in our crew have an actual.
I've got sheets and a blanket.
Yeah.
Because I came from a field job before this also. So
Yeah. So we get all of our food deliveries every week, and all of our water and propane. We're run on solar power, and we have Wi-Fi. So
yeah.
there's really no need to leave the island, honestly.
So, you said you're out there for 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
What made you want to give up your entire summer to go be isolated on this island with these birds that nobody really knows that much about, and just sitting there with just 3 other people to keep you entertained? You can't order in a pizza or do any of those things. Why would you do that?
I feel like all of us are gonna have different answers, so maybe we can just go down the
Oh,
line.
God.
I know for me, I've been doing this for a little minute. When I first started, I didn't even like birds. I kind of took the job as a first foot in the door for conservation. And I told my supervisor at the time, or not my supervisor, my advisor, I was like, it's a job. I'm happy they accepted me. I don't think I'm going to continue. And I stepped foot out here and immediately was in love with the environment. It's really, really unique to be this off the grid. So for me, as like a local Mainer who backpacked, who hiked, who camped, it's basically that one step further. And honestly, sometimes people can really send me. So I do like being a little bit separate from all the chaos that is real life.
Do you want to go down the line?
Yeah,
Okay.
down the line. Yeah.
So I guess I've always been interested in like conservation and the environment and doing whatever I can personally to help out. Anything like animals and other, I guess, species or types of things thrive as we know humans have encroached on their environment and have had pretty detrimental effects. So I've always felt personally that if I can do anything to help them and mitigate those effects, that I would. So this is kind of a once in a lifetime experience. I love birds, I love the ocean, and I said, why not?
Yeah, so as we mentioned earlier, Logan and I's professor Tasha brings 2 students out to the island, and I remember hearing about this project my first year at college and texting my mom about it, which, hi mom and dad. But I remember texting her and being like, this sounds like the coolest thing ever. I really hope I can do this. But at that time I didn't have any of the credits that I needed and courses to take. But then Tasha asked if I wanted to go, and I immediately said yes, not really knowing much else about other than the brief description that she gave. And like Logan, I love the ocean. I love any animals, whatever they may be. So, I mean, I'm absolutely loving it. I can't think of a better way to spend my summer. And then also, it's kind of like a once in a lifetime experience. Like, who else gets to say I lived on an island for a couple months with a lighthouse? Come on, that's pretty cool.
I have been doing this sort of thing for a little while now. I, like Amanda, am maybe not always like the biggest people person, so it's really nice sometimes being out on an island and not having to deal with the hubbub of city life. I come from Portland. It's the other Portland, the West Coast Portland.
Good correction.
It's really hot in the summer too. I don't have air conditioning, so it's nice being out here when, although it's gray every day this summer, it's not ideal, but it's nice being out on an island. I don't have to deal with it. It's been lovely. I get to play with birds every day too. So I also love the ocean and birds. I came in with an interest in birds. I got here from sharks though, so you know, we made a big trip. I've been living like 4-month jobs for the last few years. So every 4 months I seem to go somewhere else and do something different. So this is the huge for me.
There we go. Cool.
So we have a question from Luke again for Logan and Jossie. Will you be doing more of this in the future?
You go first.
I hope so. This is so much fun. I don't know what or when, but I really hope to do more field work.
And yeah, if the opportunity came up, I would definitely do it again.
And I did notice someone had their hand up. If you want to unmute and ask these guys a question, that's perfectly fine.
Hi guys. Hi Devin. It's good to see you again. Devin and I worked together in Oregon on the Oregon Marble Merlet project, so I'm so stoked to see them on the island. Also, the pit vipers are so amazing. You guys should definitely get a sponsorship. That's outstanding.
Should honestly
great.
try.
So good. So you did mention the weather gray. Have you guys noticed any changes in as we have rising temperatures? Is that affecting nesting any of the colonies there, or is it kind of staying the same?
So yes, short answer. There's been quite a number of projects specifically looking at that with a multitude of different species. I know there's a few PhD candidates and master's candidates looking. From what we've seen, the biggest driver is sea surface temp being a lot higher. I just checked it yesterday because we saw a drop in food. And basically what we're seeing is that we're seeing record-breaking numbers for sea surface temp for July. And we saw a pretty big spike come July 12th. And that correlates to us seeing really low feed rates and really low food diversity as well. And the big thing with our birds is that we like to see a pretty big diverse diet and a large amount of feed rate. Growing up is not easy and you need a lot of energy. And a lot of the food items that we're seeing now are really small and they're coming few and far between. So it's definitely affecting us as a colony. In the large scale, we're starting to see lower and lower productivity rates and lower body condition as well, especially in our puffins. In 2021, it was a marine heat wave that was pretty notable. And we, on a lot of these colonies, I know this colony especially, fledged maybe 4 chicks total. And I know on the island that I worked on, pretty much every single puffin that we fledged was not in the body condition to actually survive. So we hypothesized that not a single chick that fledged the island actually survived. So climate change is a really, really big problem for us. We're seeing a lot of shifts and changing things in all degrees. And a lot of people are really starting to key in on that and research it a lot more. Natasha Daenerys, who's actually here with these two students, is looking at stable isotope data in relationship to the food that's being brought in relationship to that sea surface temp. So hopefully we'll have more to share, more data to show of that actual effect happening, but it definitely is.
I'm sorry to ask such a depressing question, but I'm glad to hear that it is getting a lot of attention and everything. But you guys are doing a great job. I hope you have a great rest of your summer.
On a somewhat anecdotal comment, since I've been coming for such a long time, I can say that the summer temperatures for humans in general is warmer. This is an unusual summer with all of the fog that we've had. It's been very cool, more like it was when I was a little kid. But no, it's in the last 20-25 years, it's been noticeably a lot warmer, wearing short sleeve shirts and shorts and that sort of thing, which we could do on occasional days when I was a kid, but mostly we were in longer sleeve shirts and pants. So there's a noticeable difference also at the human level. And of course, the fishermen can tell you what the differences are in terms of the fish they're catching and the way the lobsters are behaving and so forth.
Yeah.
And the turn chicks too, like with the variation in weather, so having rain one day and then having sun the next day, it seems like they have a really hard time obviously getting wet and then regulating their temperature too when they're fully downed and out on the rocks on the shoreline. So I'm sure that doesn't help.
So you guys talked about
What's going on over there? What's the noise you're all looking at?
So the best thing about these turns is that they tend to tell us pretty quickly when something's going awry. As you hear, it's a pretty noisy place to be. We're actually more worried when it's quiet. These are colonial birds. They live as a group and also protect the colony as a group. So when they get really quiet and usually that means some kind of predators around and they're nervous. So we're kind of naturally pretty nervous when they're nervous. So we're kind of looking behind us, trying to make sure that nothing's scooting by that shouldn't be. It looks like they're okay, but if we're looking behind us, that's why.
So you guys talk about all these different species that are out there, and you're not on a very big island. How do all these birds coexist in such a small space?
Yeah, I mean, really good question. I feel like everybody kind of has their own little niche, and there are territorial disputes, especially with the common terns. They tend to be a little bit meaner. But the Atlantic puffins and the razorbills, they nest kind of on the shoreline, and yes, the common terns will whack them as they leave their burrows. And the guillemots don't really compete with the puffins because they nest in logs or under the boardwalk and kind of more shallow burrows. So there are occasional disputes, but everybody kind of, it's a working town. Everybody has their job. Everybody, lives where they live, and for the most part, they get along. We're not a very dense colony in most of the colony, so we don't see nearly as much aggression as like more southern Maine colonies.
What activities take place when you're getting ready to vacate the island at the end of the season?
Yeah, it's a whole big effort. So basically, we have to essentially close down this entire house for the winter, and a lot of the stuff stays, but a lot of stuff goes with us. So as far as crew members go, we have to kind of pack up our own stuff. Everybody brings quite a bit of not junk, but clothes, odds and ends. But we also, we have to turn everything off. We have to, we have cisterns of water that we have to empty. There's a lot of biological gear that's out. So we have fencing everywhere that we have to pack up and put away. We have observational blinds that if we were to leave up in the winter, we would no longer have because winter storms in Maine are pretty brutal. And we basically have to winterize a lot of stuff. A lot of like storm doors and storm windows get put up by our wonderful Maine Coastal Islands team come November, October. But a lot of the cleaning and organizing and kind of packing up is left to the crew. So it's definitely a process. It's a whole day event. I personally love it because it's like everybody comes on, we're all helping out, and then you get to leave, and it's a bittersweet moment. But sometimes you're like, all right, I want to take a shower, I want to do laundry, I'm ready to be home. So yeah, it's quite an event, and I know you guys haven't had that happen yet, but
No.
it'll be super fun.
Got another question here from Barbara asking, when will the last of the chicks fledge and leave the island? Do all the birds migrate or only some of the species?
Really awesome question. So as far as chicks fledging, it's variable for season to season. So we we have really young chicks on the island starting just now, so we may see chicks fledging well into like right before we leave. And we will probably have birds on the island when we leave, which is definitely strange, but it does happen. And all these birds will migrate eventually off this island. This island is barren come the winter time. Nothing stays here. To where they migrate is species to species dependent, even within our terns. So common terns will go to South America and they will have their little vacay in Brazil and Africa. And they'll spend their winter there until about early May, April, when they'll make their little way back up here to nest. Arctic terns, in the name, they're the longest migrants. They'll go to the Antarctic, and they will spend their winter there. They follow the Panama Shelf down. It's pretty impressive and pretty wild. I believe it's in their lifetime, they will travel to the moon and back twice, I believe. Fact check me on that. But it is a crazy amount of distance that they're flying pretty much within, the span of a month, not even.
You're talking about the Arties?
Arties.
And how the males and the females fly different routes too.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they follow the Panama Shelf and the like straight down pretty much through the middle.
Yeah.
Our puffins, razorbills, and guillemots will actually just stay out and sea. They never see land until the next breeding season, which is pretty impressive to me because it's pretty gosh darn chilly there. Guillemots you can actually see them in the Gulf of Maine in a lot of our coves and bays. They will hang out and eat rock gunnels and be all cute and salt and peppery. Our Atlantic puffins and razorbills will actually go north into the middle of the ocean. And when I mean middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Not a lot is known about their wintering grounds, being that it is the middle of the ocean. And it's pretty hard to track and they're pretty hard to tag. But they will just be feeding and being in little rafts together until the breeding season is next. Petrels, oh man, they are quite the species. They're pretty hard to tag and they're pretty mysterious, being that they're nocturnal. So we really don't know a lot about them. So if there's any youngsters in the group that want to study them, go for it. We should know more. And I think that's most everybody in our group.
Yeah.
So
Gulls hang out.
the gulls hang out in McDonald's parking lots eating French fries, which respects.
Yep.
So I did look up your Arctic tern fact really quick, and it is they actually make a round trip to the moon 3 times as in their
so
lifetime.
close.
So even more than that.
Yeah.
So you guys kind of gave some hints at your favorite birds when you were introducing yourselves. Do you want to maybe just take some time to just gush about your favorite species and let us know why they're your favorite and why they're better than the other birds that are out there?
Oh man. Well, yeah, of course. So, I mean, I do have a lot of favorites, and I feel like as the big boss out here, I have to not pick favorites because we have to work with all of them. But oh my gosh, Guillemot chicks are so cute, and they don't bite that hard, except they bite so much. And I do have a Guillemot tattoo, so I am biased. But the reason I love them so much, they are so charismatic. The adults are bright red in the mouth and bright red in the legs. They're the stilettos of the sea, as many call them. They just they do so well every season. They're always a bird that you can count on to kind of succeed. And even in the drab weather, it's always a great thing to go down the boardwalk and catch Guillemot chicks. So that's kind of why I love them so much.
So my favorite is probably puffins, but especially puffin adults. I think because they're really nippy and they have really sharp claws, but they're a bit of a challenge to handle, and also grub out of their burrows can be super challenging. But yeah, it always adds a nice little challenge, and also I'm just fascinated by them. They're so interesting to watch and really goofy to watch. And when you're holding them, such a small bird, you wouldn't think they're as like beefy and muscular as they are, but they're super strong. And it's just fascinating to me that for their overwintering grounds, they just go to the middle of the ocean and hang out. That's like insane that a small bird can do that.
So my favorite is the guillemot. I think the crew knows that. I always mention it. And in addition to all the things Amanda said, the adults make the cutest little whistling noises. You can always hear them whenever we get our restocks from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife crew. We sit down by the boat docks, and that's where the guillemots hang out. So we always are sung to, which I adore. And then, of course, you have the little chicks, which are just filled with tiny rage that try to bite you, but it doesn't hurt. Yeah, and just the bright colors of their feet, they're just so beautiful, and they look so cute when they fly. I will gush about the guillemots forever and ever.
I do also love the guillemots.
Yes.
I mean, the puffin chicks are outrageous. They're so cute. They're so round and fluffy. But the guillemots they've got a lot of personality. I do also really have a soft spot for the storm petrels. They're really tiny. The fact that they live in a hole in the ground and they make little Muppet noises.
Yeah.
They're very cute.
Oh man.
So it's hard. It's hard to pick one.
Yeah. Insert Muppet noise.
I was like, we have the little video, but there's no sound to it.
While they chat, I will pull up a Muppet noise.
Oh yeah. And they just fly around at night. They look like bats. You don't even see them. Just flying around, being cute.
So imagine you're at night, you just landed on an island. You have no idea what you're doing because it's your first ever field season. You just made this hour-long journey and you just want to get some sleep. And then all of a sudden, you just start hearing this from your window endlessly all night long. And you go to the bathroom and this is all you hear. So they are pretty silly, I will admit.
And they're so small.
Oh goodness.
So clearly the crew's already read the question, but for the sake of those of you who aren't reading the chat, Luke just asked, what is the first meal you'll have when you get off the island?
Oh, I already know. So there is a Mexican place right next to base called Vasquez in Millbridge. And I just don't want to cook for myself. And that sounds mighty fine. So I'm pretty sure that'll be my first meal off.
This isn't necessarily a meal, but like a Starbucks coffee would be ideal. And then probably after that, Chinese food.
Oh, sounds good.
Devin said pizza, and I have to agree. I think pizza would be really good. Also, maybe a nice burrito. But yeah, I don't want to cook for myself for a little while.
No. Ooh, also, I'm in Maine, so lobster has to be on that list. I still haven't had it.
Really?
So, yeah. So, like a lobster.
We'll start radioing
something.
lobstermen.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Our
ominous.
finally left green, by the way.
Did they?
Just now.
Yeah, all these have been pretty good questions. Yeah.
Amanda,
What's up?
do you guys do laundry out there?
We have the most sophisticated laundry system called a 5-gallon bucket and a plunger with holes in it. It works pretty well for the most part. Do I wish I had a washing machine? Of course.
Really?
But yeah, we use pretty much 2 5-gallon buckets, one clean, one dirty water, and a plunger so you don't break your back. Gets the job done.
All right.
So you guys kind of alluded to this earlier that something you'd be excited about when you get home is the laundry, but also a shower. So what's that situation like for you guys?
Well,
So, where do I begin? I came to
home.
Millbridge office in May to the wonderful news that we had a brand new propane shower installed on the island, which worked for probably a month and a half. And then it didn't work. So for the past month or so, we've been taking cold bucket showers
With the cup.
with the cup,
Can't forget the cup.
and we wash our hair in the basement.
On the steps.
You
in
don't
a-
have to
in-
wash
in
your
like
hair in
a
the basement.
No, you
saucepan.
don't
Come
have
outside.
to.
You
don't
could
have
also
to
do it
in the scary
outside.
basement.
But it's like a little
It's
a little
fun.
cooking pan. You just dump your head in there,
Uh-huh.
get a good
Heat
scrub.
up some water.
Yeah.
So if anybody knows how to fix a propane shower, that'd be really great. It is definitely disappointing, but we make it work out here.
Oh yeah.
Our poor propane shower.
So we got another good question from Luke. How do you identify what type of fish are being brought back to the island?
Do you guys want to go over it?
Yeah, I mean, basically, so we do feeding studies, which every morning we sit in a blind starting around like 8 o'clock for 3 hours, and we have a plot right in front of us with all of our turns, and we open up the blind window and we get our binoculars ready, and we have our fish identification chart with all of their codes, and we basically just watch the adults fly in, and we watch what they're giving the chick, and we just based off of like its dorsal fins and like maybe how many fins it has or its color or its what is it, caudal peduncle.
Peduncle.
You can kind of identify the fish and you just go from there.
Some of them are very distinct shapes.
Yeah.
The sand lance is a long skinny fish, and the butterfish is like a little round one.
Dinner
Yeah.
plate.
So little dinner plate, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting skill to learn. Never thought I would have to ID fish at such a fast rate, but it is a fun party trick.
Yeah. Sometimes they don't always bring in fish. You might get a moth or a
Yep.
dragonfly or some kind of bait. So
Yeah,
it's always a fun time.
it's entertaining. There they go.
There's a Cessna flying around. It's plane. Small plane.
Thank you.
We're overhearing marine radio banter.
So
You may have planes around there because apparently there's a lobster fisherman that is missing. So they've been searching.
Yeah, we were made aware of that last night. We, as a crew, we are researchers, but our responsibility is to also work with Marine Patrol and Coast Guard, and we are, trained to be able to take to help with that. So a lot of our actual biological research has been put on hold to help search. We do have that light tower behind us that gives us really, really good visibility on a non-foggy day. So we actually, on the clearing earlier today, spent quite a bit of time up there looking. We personally haven't seen anything, but we're going to continue to help. It is definitely a pretty scary situation. Happened pretty late last night for us. So, that is part of the job. It's part of living on the ocean. It's one of those things. If you're an ocean goer, be safe, be smart. It's definitely non-forgiving. So
Go with a buddy.
yeah.
I know. Fog came back too.
Luke's got another question here asking, what was the earliest sunrise this season?
Too early.
Ooh.
Ooh.
You probably got this one. I'm gonna say
Probably-
like 4:15, 4:30.
Yeah, 4:15.
Yeah,
It's pretty light out here anyways because the sun rises over the ocean, so there's no mountains blocking it. So, we get full sun come around 4:30. And sadly, me and Logan's windows are facing the sunrise, so we get
Beautiful.
We get the sunset, so that's always nice.
yeah, we get blasted every morning, and I'm like, why am I awake? And I'm like, oh, there's so much sun in my room.
And then it's 7 o'clock and the fog comes back. So
Yeah,
you don't have to worry about it.
it is a foggy place to be.
Yep.
So what's next for you guys when you're done out there? What do you do now?
Well,
You guys all have
Yeah.
different plans.
Wander
Yeah.
around.
we go back to school at the end of August in Gettysburg.
And we'll probably basically go through all of the data we've collected out here with our professor, start to formulate what honors thesis, which is basically a research project we're going to do, and brag to all of our friends about what we did this summer. So busy schedule.
Show them many pictures.
Yes, of course.
As you should. For me, immediately after the island, we have a Gulf of Maine Seabird Working Group, and we have an annual meeting. We actually have 2 meetings, but regardless. And my responsibility as a supervisor is to actually report out to that group about how we did as a crew and how we did as an island. So basically, I get like a day off, and then I have to go down to Bristol and report out to that, and also see my friends over at Project Puffin, which I'm really looking forward to. Past that, I'll have a couple weeks off, and I'm actually finishing my last semester at the University of Maine in Orono. So hopefully I'll be graduating in December, and then past that, don't ask. I have no idea.
Who knows? We never know what's happening. I'm gonna go to Japan for a week with my friend, and then other than that, maybe another 4-month job. Maybe not. We'll see.
Do you guys post any of your photos anywhere other than that Seabird Summer with the Seabird blogs that you guys already talked about? Do you have any other ways that you're sharing some of these photos?
Yeah, I believe we all have social media that we post on. I also have an eBird account, which is basically a grown-up version of Pokemon for birds. So I do post quite a bit of like more of like just the bird pictures on there. And on my social media, I do try to post pretty regularly on, what's happening on the island, of course, cute bird pics and, the happenings. So if anybody was interested in that, I believe Tori can kind of get you in touch to where that is. All of it's public for me, so you're more than welcome to pass with her. As far as y'all, I believe you're all.
I'm really terrible at posting pictures.
Yeah.
Don't use my eBird.
Yeah. So, yeah.
They just sit on my phone, and I scroll through them when we don't have Wi-Fi.
Oh man.
We have another tour boat.
I think we have the Trisha Clark.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna open it up one last time. If anybody has any questions, definitely take advantage of these guys being here and giving us their time. This is a unique opportunity to get to hear directly from folks working out on the islands. So I guess while people think if they have any final questions, I will propose that maybe if you guys have anything that you wish someone would have asked about or that you think is unique or anything kind of last minute that you want to share before we let you guys go, we'll do that.
I can always give my elevator pitch that I always give to all the tour boats. So a lot of the time people ask, not the question of like, why do you want to spend 4 months on the island, but also why do you care? I think is a really important question to ask. And that goes for most conservation I think that's a question that a lot of people ask. Why do you care? Why does it matter? Why should we care about these birds that we don't even know about? And I always say it's, partially like they exist. They have the right to exist. We are in part the reason why they didn't exist for a while. And we also should play a role in kind of helping them come along. So it is really important that we're, taking care of these birds. And a big part of that is people knowing and, referring back to people not knowing. For a long time, I didn't even know puffins existed in Maine. And I have interacted with a lot of people that also don't know. So I think for y'all out there, maybe thinking, hey, maybe I can't work on an island and I can't do this. But what you can do is you can share that like, hey, this exists and that these colonies exist and that they are so critical to these Maine ecosystems. And I think, public outreach is a really important thing. And the public knowing and the public caring is what drives funding and allows us to continue to do this really important research. So, tell your friends, tell your family, show them pictures of puffins. It can be cute. It can just be that. And that alone helps us tenfold. So thank you for coming out.
And I'm gonna jump onto that and say that if you're anywhere in the mid-coast area, we do have a visitor center here in Rockland. Definitely you can come in here and get some more some not quite as cool hands-on experience as what these guys are getting, but you can get some pretty cool hands-on stuff. You can get the latest updates from us here about what's going on out there. And also stop in and support us. We've got a little gift shop. You can pick up some Seabird swag and support these guys that way as well. 100% of those profits go back into supporting these guys being out there and taking care of these colonies.
So what was the design for the shirt, right?
Oh, we may possibly in the near future have a 40-year anniversary themed merch, including a shirt, and it may or may not have been designed by me. So if you want a really cool shirt with a lot of cool birds on it, keep your eye out for that. Hopefully it'll be coming out in the next few short weeks. It's a pretty sweet design. I may be biased, but it is pretty
It's
cool.
really cool.
It's good.
So yeah.
Tori, I have a question. So if that shirt that Amanda talked about becomes available, do we have to come to the visitor center, or is there a way to get it online?
True. That's a very good
point. Yeah.
I'm going to be real honest with you. That is the first I have heard of a shirt. So this is something that's happening above my pay grade. So I will have to look into it because I also would like a 40th anniversary shirt. So I will be doing some furious research and bugging of the refuge staff to say what's going on with this t-shirt. And we will definitely put it out in our e-news. So if you're not signed up for that, you definitely want to go on to the Friends of Maine Coastal Islands website and get signed up for our e-news. We will be sure to send that out because that is very exciting to have something commemorative and of course something that was designed by one of our researchers. So as soon as I have some more information, I will make sure that that gets out to folks. So it looks like we had another question from Luke. How far do the birds have to go from the island to gather food?
Oh, a great question. So normally we wouldn't be able to answer that question because we can only see as far as the birds can go, and we can't really tell where they're feeding because they do feed quite far off the island. But again, with Natasha Generis being out here, we've been able to put geo tags on a lot of birds. So basically what these tags are is they basically are solar powered little teeny tiny tags that are less than 3% of the body weight of the bird. And they will spend their time with that tag for as long as the tag will survive on that bird. We've had tags last up to 2 years, so hopefully we can get some really awesome data from them. And we never really have to handle that bird again because they get offloaded onto base stations, which are basically like fancy offloading devices that are on our island. And from that, we can see with pretty high accuracy where these birds are going to feed and where they're going to migrate as well. And we've gotten some really bad data. I don't know if you guys know more about the individual.
No, I mean, I remember one of the terns traveled like 100 kilometers. Yeah, like a very far distance to get food. So it's cool to see the different distances that are traveled.
Yeah, and of course, the amount of traveling and the direction that they go is species dependent. So our Arctic terns actually go further offshore to feed, and we see that through both our tracks and our isotope data, as well as our common terns are actually going more into like Dyer's Bay area, more inland into the river systems, and they're getting food from there. And you can see that through the changes of diet. So Arctic terns tend to feed more sandlands hake, where the common terns tend to feed more herring. Our puffins are going pretty far out to sea. They're going 50 to 100 kilometers out, kind of more the direction where the Arctic terns are going. And our guillemots actually feed right offshore, off our island, within 30 kilometers of the island, which, you can see through their feed rate and what the food items are bringing in. So, species to species, it's different. This tagging, tracking data is super cool because now we can be like, yeah, they actually are. They're getting that one fish from right here and coming back. So it's super, super cool.
What about the tags you put on the storm petrels too? They're going onto like the shelf, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the Leach's storm petrels, we actually put out 12 tags. We are co-working with Keenan Yakola, who is a PhD candidate out of OSU. And Yes. Um, his project is focused on movement ecology of a multitude of seabirds. And he's also focused on looking at Leach's storm petrels in relationship to offshore wind in Maine, because the offshore wind project's lease site is pretty large, and they're worried that maybe there's birds that are using those sites. So our Leach's storm petrels from tracks that I've seen in the past are going as far as Manan Bank. They are basically all over the place. They spend multiple days off to sea, going, 700 kilometers to go feed for euphausiids. So for being such a tiny, teeny little bird, they go so far, and it's so crazy to see, because you would think for like such a small bird they would only be feeding so close, and then you see these tracks and you're like, wow, I'm holding a bird that just spent 4 days in the middle of the ocean and is now feeding its chick, and you would never know that without this tracking data. So they're definitely our furthest feeders, and it's crazy.
If you want to see some of that data that's been published from previous years, we do have some of that here in the visitor center. So we have some maps that show where these guys have been. So we can help show you some of that data too, if you're interested in some more specifics.
Yeah, they're so cool. Mm-hmm.
So I think we've run over our hour time limit here, and these guys have a lot of important stuff they've got to go get to. So we're going to wrap it up for the day here with a big thank you to these guys. And I will also put out that if anyone has any remaining questions about anything, they can definitely reach out to info at Maine Coast Islands, or me directly, Tori_Tibbets at Maine Coast Island, or message us on Instagram or Facebook, and we will get you a good answer to these questions.